How does a marketer, or how does a brand, I should say, make sure they're merchandising all of their products sort of in a balanced way so that every product gets its shot?
So we're basically saying, okay, if this product isn't selling, detected the signal when it's just started to get, it's not dire. It's just started to kind of underpace where it should be. Okay, so we have some time. Let's put it in more assets. Let's find a micro niche that makes sense for this product. Like on social media, like there's, let's say there's like, I don't know, 150 million eyeballs on Super Bowl content or back to school content because it kind of bubbles to the top, right? Everyone is talking about it. If you're bidding on those keywords, if you're trying to, get your Super Bowl, party theme thing in front of the customer and everyone else is, or you're trying to get your back to school theme thing in front of the customer and everyone else is, like, guess what? Supply and demand. Those are really expensive things to traffic. But if you think of that 150 million eyeballs and if you like subdivide them into like, 10 or 15 or whatever, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 million each with all the micro trends that all those people care about, there's far fewer people bidding on spooky season keywords and even creating spooky season content. Like the algorithm is hungry. It wants more of that stuff. So when it starts to trend, it's looking for more. The savvy influencers know it. They're the ones then hopping on those trends. The marketers at these big companies are so left behind.
I'm sure you're always thinking about the future. How do you see personalized styling experiences evolving given where you see the technology is going?
I see this shift from traditional Google search to a more outcome-oriented AI mode style search as a really good thing for retailers if they are prepared to be indexed for it. And they are so not right now.
Welcome to the MarTech Matrix, a Blurbs production. Blurbs is a community platform built by brands, designed around how they want to search for solutions, not how vendors want to sell them. It's where marketers and e-commerce leaders find the right tech faster, with clear answers and no sales fluff. Each week, we bring that mission to life, interviewing MarTech founders and industry pros to explain what they do, the problems they solve, and how the space is evolving, all without the buzzwords. And now, your host, Sean Simon.
Welcome back to the MarTech Matrix, a Blurbs production. If you've ever shopped online and thought, I like that shirt, but what am I going to wear it with? This episode's for you. Retailers spend millions on creative and merchandising, but most still struggle to connect the dots, to show shoppers how to wear, use, or style the products they're buying. The result? Lost inspiration, lost confidence, and lost sales. The same can be said for home decor, beauty, and other categories. Today's guest built a platform that solves for that. FindMine helps retailers provide inspiration during their shopping journey, using AI to create complete outfits that stay perfectly on brand and always in stock. Lululemon, Gap, and Anine Bing are among the brands using FindMine to scale what their styling and merchandising teams could never do manually. Michelle Bacharach, welcome into the Matrix.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me.
All right, before we dig in, here's how FindMine describes itself on Blurbs. FindMine helps retailers by automating product styling to create complete outfits. It uses AI to ensure consistency across marketing channels. This reduces manual work and time spent by teams. Retailers can deliver personalized experiences. The goal is to drive higher customer engagement and increase sales. So let's start there, Michelle. Let's talk about your path to FindMine and what was the moment you realized there was a styling gap that needed fixing?
Yeah, I think it went all the way back to 2010, honestly, where I noticed myself, walking by a window display and being like, oh, that's beautiful. I want to live in that living room, or I want to look like her. And then you walk into the store, and the store is not all merchandise like that, unless you're in an IKEA. IKEA is like the epitome of like those little showrooms that you walk through. It's just chef's kiss, so inspiring, so genius that they do that. But most retailers don't have like a giant warehouse in Red Hook where you can do that. They have small floor footprints. So even in the physical world, it's really hard to inspire your customer all the time with every single product you have. And that kind of kicked off this, well, what if retailers could just do that for everything? If there was like a virtual end cap or window display for every single thing they sold, because they clearly know how to be successful with the products they're selling you. They have more expertise in whatever it is, sporting goods, beauty, anti-aging, fashion. And how do you get that kind of information to the consumer at scale? And then obviously 2010 was a long time ago. TikTok didn't exist. A lot of the platforms didn't exist, or they were owned by different people. And so as the years kind of evolved after we had launched FindMine about 6 years later in 2016, I started noticing kind of the same paradigm in social media, the way that, influencers are talking about things. It's all outcome oriented. It's getting ready with me. What the heck is a Gari makeup? Spooky season, how to do a glam goth eye, all this stuff that consumers are following along with in earnest. And then you click through on a product you see there and you get to the product detail page and it's like the product is in isolation again. You've lost all the inspiration. So that same kind of disconnect by going from between going from the front of the house in a beautifully merchandise store to 2 steps inside is the same kind of wah experience that consumers are facing now in digital, coming from this very inspiring place, which is social media, and then landing in e-commerce, which is sort of devoid of that expertise or inspiration. And that's what we set out to solve.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like personal experiences drive a lot of founders to create companies. And when I think about how I shop, like before I shopped online, going to like a department store and you're like, oh, I like these pants. Okay, well, what shirt can I put with it? And hopefully there's someone there to help me. But usually I'm just like putting things together. I'm doing this, right? But
or you buy exactly what's on the mannequin because it's right there and it's so easy.
Yeah, or that, or whatever the what do you call them? The store clerk or the attendant or the expert in the store, at least you think she's the expert, is telling me it goes well together or looks good on me. And that's really hard to do online because the way e-commerce hasn't changed in 25 years, right? It's all flat images on a page. And so it's really difficult to see how things will look together. And people can't do it on their own. Like if I'm just shopping on a site, I can't be like, am I going to put 2 browser windows next to each other and kind of see how they look? So I can see the real value there. Or even like furniture, right? Like you said, IKEA, like putting a room together, like I like the sofa, but what chair am I going to put with it? Or what coffee table? And you have to have an imagination or otherwise you need help.
Yeah.
Right? Most
of us don't have imagination. Most consumers don't. Guess who does? The people who work in those industries. That's why they're drawn to it. They're like part of that 10% of the population or 5% that has that little part of their brain where they can like visualize the space coming together, visualize a whole outfit head to toe, visualize the outcome when you're, getting dressed in the morning with the hair and the makeup. Most of us don't have that, but I think the fact that the people who work in those organizations do, they don't have the same level of empathy that they don't have the empathy for like what we as consumers who lack that gene go through when we're evaluating their products. In fact, I think it was like 2017, right after I'd first started this, I was at like a pitch competition, I can't remember which one. It wasn't Shark Tank, but it was something like here in New York, it was like a fashion event. And Damon John was one of the judges and I pitched him what we do. And it was, talking about fashion. He's like, yeah, but consumers don't need to be told what to wear. They already know. They have a fashion sense. I was like, you do because you're a fashion designer, but the rest of us really don't. And, you're missing this whole segment of the population that like really needs your help.
Yeah, it's interesting too, like you say, because I was thinking about the cities I've lived in and how different fashion can be from one city to another. And I'm making broad strokes here, but if you walk around New York City, people look more together, right, than they do. I'll pick on my own city, Portland, right? They just here there's just a sort of a feeling of like whatever. It's cold, it's wet. I'm gonna wear my jeans and flannel. It's not really a lot of thought that goes into like matching the outfit together. Where in New York you see that differently. Is that because obviously you walk down Fifth Avenue, you see all the windows, or do you think it's just people in New York tend to be more fashion savvy because they're in Manhattan? Like, what do you think?
I think there's a lot to unpack there. You asked a big question, but I think that
it wasn't one of my fan questions.
No, I mean, I think it's a really interesting thing to bring up because like when retailers and brands are talking about personalization, you have to take in geographic preference into account, not just Portland and New York, but like our customers we serve brands in Japan and in Europe. And like, obviously there's regional differences in style and in trends and things that people are talking about. The Super Bowl is really not that relevant outside of the US, and different markets, different segments of the market celebrate different kinds of holidays. Right. I think in terms of like what makes New York different from a fashion perspective, having a lot of the fashion headquarters be here, it's just a little bit more like avant-garde, envelope pushing already. And then there's the whole finance industry, which is traditionally very buttoned up. So like the level of formality is inherently higher. I don't think it's that people don't care about how they look in Portland. I think it's that the function needs to matter more because it's raining, it's cold, people are a lot more outdoorsy, you're doing all these outdoor activities. So you have to think about the function of it. But even that, like REI can give you more of their expertise to help you get, there faster, making you stay dry but not hot, getting you out to your camping trip. Something that like Lululemon could help you wear something to work and then transition right to your camping trip or your cycling activity or whatever. So it's just more of like that expertise of the brand coming through, depending on their customer base, the types of products that they sell, the geographic differences, and then putting their own brand spin on it so that it's not getting lost. Like you're not treating New York and San Francisco the same. You're also not looking like the way that maybe Athleta does Portland is different than the way Lululemon does Portland. And that's good. It differentiates those two brands from each other, even though they play in the same category.
Yeah, that's gonna be my next question. And I'm not trying to pick on Portland because I definitely changed the way I dress since I moved up here. Like
You
you
wearing
said,
a lot of inflatable animal costumes now?
no, no, no inflatable costumes. I did see some a couple weeks ago when they had those rallies, but the Cartman one was the best one that I saw.
Yes.
But
How could you
no,
forget
but I'm
Cartman?
definitely wearing more flannels and boots and sneakers, and not. I mean, I have a closet full of shoes and clothes that when I lived in the Bay Area, I would wear all the
Yeah.
time. And I feel weird wearing them here. There's no place to wear them. Like, there's just not how people dress. You sort of touched on this at the end of that last answer, but are there brands out there that when they put outfits together, they're thinking about, okay, for New York, if someone comes into the website from New York, we want to show them this. But if they come in from Portland or Florida or Arizona, we want to show them something different. Same catalog of products, but maybe pushing something different to the forefront or wearing it differently.
Yeah, definitely there's some of that. I think that painting a whole city with the same brush is tricky. I would prefer them to do something more like trend aligned, where they have, let's say for a white button up shirt, you could wear it in the sweater season aesthetic. You could wear it in a almond mom summer aesthetic, all these things that are like kind of nonsense words until you figure out what it is by having some influencer unpack it for you on TikTok or on Instagram. I would rather have that shirt put into all those different contexts and then fed into Meta so that Meta can do what it does well, which is find the targeting, right? It's going to put it in front of different people. It's going to see who it resonates with, let people opt into it. When the customer clicks through on that ad, it follows them. So if you clicked on the gloomy Portland rain weather version, you would get that suggestion that would follow you, that inspiration would follow you. So the way you wear a white button down shirt would have kind of gloomy Portland weather vibes to it, rather than just assuming anyone who clicks through and lives in the city of Portland should get this, because there's less fidelity and opportunity with that, because the way you dress living in Portland is inherently going to be different than the way someone who's fairly similar to you and also lives in Portland dresses, because you guys each have your own personal spin on style. If you open your TikTok or your Instagram and you go to your For You page, yours is probably going to be pretty different than like the guy next to you, even if, objectively speaking, you guys are fairly similar from a demographic standpoint. That's what social media is so good at, is those micro trends and those micro niches. Retailers are failing to capitalize on that. It is a gold mine. It is a way to bust CAC, not have to spend so much money to acquire your customer, learn more about your customer so you can personalize them better later in the future without any PII. It's just this, missed opportunity across the board. So that's how I'd prefer to see it happen.
So when you think about CAC, and we can get into the product more in depth here. When you think about CAC as for a retailer, right? They're spending money, they're getting people to their website, and then, like you said, a lot of times it's a disconnect. Like the ad doesn't match the landing page, let's say. But how does a marketer, or how does a brand, I should say, make sure that they're merchandising all of their products sort of in a balanced way, so that every product gets its shot, if you will, to get bought, right? If you think about it that way.
Yes.
When you have so many, and if you're a consumer, you're on a website, it's like flat images on a page for the most part. How do you don't even know all the products that are there. So how do they go out merchandising all of those products, given how much there is?
Yeah. It's crazy to me how often retailers are just so quick to turn their back on a product. And how like my kids are really into like Disney movies right now because they're young, but like we just watched Toy Story, and the idea that like toys have feelings and they're sad when they get left behind. If you imagine like these little products, they're poor products, they just didn't get their shot, and they got like pushed into the clearance rack, like the indignity, right? And I think one of the reasons is that was the blunt instrument that has existed for all this time, supply and demand. So like, ooh, it's not selling, drop the price, it sells faster. But then it's a sort of like pucks, on this product, that you don't want to like cross merchandise that with a product doesn't have the stink of having to be on clearance. So a lot of our brands are like, don't mix sale and full price product together. Fine, that's a fair rule. We employ that all the time with really high accuracy because it's all happening at the code level. It's not a human sitting there making, an asset or a lookbook and then accidentally putting the sale product in. So that's a good, fair strategy. But more often what's happening with these products is that they just weren't presented correctly. The other kind of blunt instrument that merchandisers have before it goes on sale is like, it gets sticky to the top left corner of the pants page. It's like, please sell. It's the first thing there. You can't miss it. Again, really blunt instrument. Whereas the sophistication that we're able to bring to the table is we tie merchandising and marketing together. So we're basically saying, okay, if this product isn't selling, we've detected the signal when it's just started to get, it's not dire. It's just started to kind of underpace where it should be. Okay, so we have some time. Let's put it in more assets. Let's find a micro niche that makes sense for this product. A lot of times those things that go on sale are like, they're a little bit out there. It's like, it's kind of a bold move, right? To buy a sequined vest. But sequin vests might be really great in a story about like glam holiday party dressing. So like, let's get it into that. And that's the disconnect. In the world where we don't exist, the merchandiser for the sequin vest can't go beg her friend down the hall who works in marketing to like make a bunch of ads for the sequin vest. The marketers, like, I'm working on Valentine's Day and like Easter 2026. I can't help you right now with the sequin vest because our time cycles are misaligned and it's manual. And if I helped you, I would have to help everyone. And there's no time to do it for everyone. So our system can stitch all those things together in real time dynamically and also protect against like tainting whatever thing you would put this sequin vest in with the stink of a really crappy product, because retailers are worried like a dog is a dog, just isolate and contain. But we've proven again and again that that's not always the case, but we can also control for that. And if the relative revenue impact or ROAS of an ad that was a holiday glam dressing dropped after or because of adding that sequin vest, we could pull it out and then we just isolate and contain. But then you're doing that 10% of the time, not 99% of the time.
So funny enough, when I was asking you that question, I was literally thinking about Toy Story and the personality that the clothes or the items have, and how they're not getting their fair shot.
If Disney's listening, there's your next movie idea.
Right. I mean, you could do that about anything, right? I think about it with dogs all the time, but that's been done. So FindMine is not only looking at what's fashionable. You're looking at, okay, what's the stock, what's the price, what's the inventory, what's in style, and then what are their different audiences that might be interested in a product positioned this way, or this way. How does that get put into practice? Like if I'm a retailer right now, whether I'm a retailer or a brand, right? I imagine maybe it's a little bit different. How does it take us through that initial setup, like how you get all of that information from their catalog to then not only show up in ads and landing pages and product pages, but also sort of work together to understand inventory levels, sizes, costs, sale items, non-sale items, and style?
A lot of the data we get from the product feed, it's the same one going to power a Google PLA or different systems across the internet. We might plug in directly to your e-commerce platform if that's the first option is not available to you for whatever reason. And then we also have partnerships with like SAP from an ERP perspective to get more rich information, or you can feed that into the feed. We don't actually even need to know like what the margin of a product is because that's sensitive. It can just be like high margin ? And there's like a 0 or 1 in that column and we can action off of that. So that's the first step, regardless of where you're kind of having our assets show up. Then from there, it diverges a little bit depending on where you want our system to show up. We're going to train our AI on your product catalog. We're going to train it on sort of the essence of your brand based on, creative you've already done. We're going to interview or have a questionnaire filled out by your merchandisers about what you can and can't cross merchandise. Don't mix Gucci with anything that's not in the Kering family, but it can mix with other Kering brands, stuff like that. Then once that kind of training period is done and our system is tuned on that, we're going to start producing, we're going to start plugging into the places that are going to produce it to show the asset. So that might be in the ad space, we're going to get a copy of the meta DPA, or they call them catalog ads now, but it's this like glorified Excel file that has like all the information you need to make the ad show up. Typically the image is the hero image of the product. So for the sweater, it's just the shot of the sweater or someone wearing the sweater. with what we can do, we can then put that sweater into like 16 different moments or mood boards, if you will, to show all the different ways to style it. And then we create those images dynamically. They can be on an AI person, not a real person. They can be digitally AI superimposed onto a real human, but who wasn't actually wearing those clothing. Or it can just be like a mood board, right? It's individual products. And then we host that image, and then it gets put into that Meta file, and then Meta just does what Meta does. Like there's no technical integration to make that happen. On the flip side, if you wanted to show up on your landing pages or your PDPs or category pages and stuff like that, then you get a little snippet of code that goes onto those pages that's calling our system for the real-time dynamically produced asset for that moment, such that like when the customer clicks through on the ad for, you know, spooky season or whatever it is, they land in either the PDP that has spooky season content also called there from FindMine, or they land in the landing page that has spooky season content across the entire page. And then, you know, for email, it's kind of a different, you know, implementation paradigm. We also have like raw data that feeds different systems. So like if you have a chatbot and you want the chatbot to become a personal stylist, we can have data that feeds it. We have data that feeds PIMs and different kind of like inventory information systems with imbues like individual products with trend information and stuff like that as well. So it depends a little bit on where you use it, but just generally the paradigms are like, we get the data, we train the system based on the data, we feed the assets back out into the system, into the wild. They're created on the fly. We learn from that. We track all this information. We provide reporting on it, and the system gets smarter over time.
So if you're a brand who hasn't dived into this space yet, it's something that you'd expect your merchandiser and marketing teams to do, and maybe they are on a really small level, but you're allowing them to do it across the entire catalog. So maybe they're not putting as many products on sale or having to go on clearance. And you're not just showing people how to wear, you're inspiring them with, you know, the season or the event. You're giving them more motivation than just, you know, here's what you should wear. So
right. And also like on social media, like there's, you know, let's say there's like, I don't know, 150 million eyeballs on Super Bowl content or back to school content, because it kind of bubbles to the top, right? Everyone is talking about it. If you're bidding on those keywords, if you're trying to, you know, get your Super Bowl, you know, party theme thing in front of the customer and everyone else is, or you're trying to get your back to school theme thing in front of the customer and everyone else is, like, guess what? Supply and demand. Those are really expensive things to traffic. But if you think of that 150 million eyeballs, and if you like subdivide them into like, you know, 10 or 15 or whatever, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 million each, with all the micro trends that all those people care about, there's far fewer people bidding on spooky season keywords and even creating spooky season content. Like the algorithm is hungry. It wants more of that stuff. So when it starts to trend, it's looking for more. The savvy influencers know it. They're the ones then hopping on those trends. The marketers at these big companies are so left behind. Like by the time they got it together to make something spooky season, the moment's passed, it's over. The algorithm's not picking up on that stuff anymore. And you look tone deaf because you were late to the party.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the idea. You can do more, right? Like you don't have to just think about, you know, Valentine's Day, Memorial Day, Labor Day, Christmas, Thanksgiving. You can think about all the little things in between, the weekend, the Kentucky Derby, right? The, you know, Super Bowl, like you said, there's lots of little things you can do and break it up.
And also, like, the more you know, the more you break down sort of monoliths of your audience. Like we partner with this company called Theme Index, and they do an analysis of gaps in your marketing to figure out what niches you're missing out on. So they can say, okay, you're targeting US Hispanics, but you're not really like capturing the fact that, you know, American women of Mexican descent have different vernacular and they talk about different things. Like their trends are going to be different than, you know, American women who happen to be of Honduran descent, and their slang is different and all that kind of stuff. Like there's so much rich opportunity there. The holidays could be different, regional differences, you know, the New York Marathon is a huge like thing here, but no one across the country cares about it. But here it like shuts down traffic for an entire day and you can't go anywhere. And it's like a fall iconic event. So why not capitalize on all those things? The reason why not currently is at scale, right? So you're like, okay, I only have resources for one thing. So I'm going to talk about Thanksgiving. I don't have time for New York Marathon and also all the other things that are happening across the country around the same time. if you have the scale limitation removed, you can capitalize on all that.
Yeah, that macro picture is important because it allows you to target audiences you never thought you could target before because you had to focus. That's really a big business decision, I think, for brands to make. You mentioned the meta ads before, the DPAs, now they're called catalog ads. How do brands, I mean, I'm sure when brands start working with you, they've already been doing that, right? And so how do they view your ads compared to what Meta's been doing? Because Meta will say that they've been doing something similar, but with their own algorithm. Like, how do you approach that conversation?
Yeah, so we're not doing any of the targeting. Meta's got that. They say the creative is the targeting, right? You don't have to set it up where you're like, carving out an audience or something and then matching the creative to that audience. It's like you just provide the creative substrate and then they will find the audience that makes sense for that. So we're not replacing that or doing that. What Meta is not doing in the programmatic space, and I'll get to the creative side in a second, but in the programmatic space, they're just leaving it to the retailer or brand to input your image URL here. It literally is like that. It's like, this is the file. Here's how to populate these programmatic ads. There's an image for every single one. Plop your image in each. And obviously, if you have 1,000 products, 10,000 products, if they change with some frequency, it's like kind of impossible to have a unique, interesting image for every single one. And not only one for every single product, 10, 15, 20, 25, 50, depending on how many different trends or micro niches or personalized segments and stuff you're trying to get in front of. So like the baseline that most every retailer of any kind of scale is doing in these catalog ads, it's just the image URL for the hero product that's already on the PDP. Because you have to have that. You have to show what your product is to sell it on e-commerce. You already got that. Great. Stick it in the catalog ad. Boom, done. So that's the baseline. When we replace that image with something that's more elevated and interesting, we get 50% higher return on ad spend. So it's just making more interesting the thing you're already doing through the same workflow you're already doing it in. Now, Meta says they have, AI generated creative, and they do, and it can be really great. The thing Meta is not going to help you with is to help articulate to that creative engine, that text to image editor, text to video editor, what is that je ne sais quoi about your brand? Prompting the AI is like, there's a whole art to it. It's crazy. Like, it's incredibly brilliant and so insanely stupid at the same time. Like, if you, like my shirt, right? If you were like, okay, make an image of a woman wearing this like striped shirt and this, red top, but make sure the red top is visible. It will probably cut a hole in the shirt, in the sweater, so you can see through it rather than just like have it be unbuttoned, dummy. Like, that's how dumb this AI stuff is. Like, you have to prompt it and reprompt it and tell it and explain and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of brand is not reducible to like human language, right? It's ineffable. It's hard to explain it. Mm-hmm. And that's what our system is really uniquely good at. It's our AI can better explain to Meta's LLM or whoever you're using, Sora, Google's, VO, all the kind of different text to video or text to image editors. Our AI can better prompt that so that your output is infinitely better than what it would have been if you were trying to prompt it left to your own devices.
It's almost like you're teaching it its own language, right? Like, it's like talking to somebody in English when they only speak Spanish. What about brand, right? So you touched on this earlier. When you come into an organization, do people get concerned about brand, or maybe today they're really happy to see you because they're worried about Meta's doing to their brand. So now they can still do Meta ads and you're improving the brand, right? They're not thinking about performance necessarily. They're worried about, like, is it on brand? What's that conversation like?
I think it depends on what kind of brand you are, honestly. I think there's like marketplaces that don't really, not that they don't care, but they don't have to be as sensitive about it as a luxury brand retailer, mm-hmm. for example. So our value prop is slightly different depending on where you come down on that. We are always going to help you with operational efficiency. So even if you want a prescriptive, only exactly what the model was wearing on the runway, or what our visual window display looks like, or what our interior designers have hand-picked as the look, if you only want that prescription, we will still support you with the operational efficiency of making sure that those assets get trafficked to the right places for the right audiences, and that they're updated when things go out of stock. You're redirecting customers to something they can buy if something that they can't buy is gone, that you are helping feed that very prescriptive, manually curated lookbook to a store associate through her clienteling device, so that she can very quickly make decisions about which looks to share with her customer without having to say, okay, which one's in stock in my store? What do I know about this customer? So we're still going to support the operational efficiency, even when your brand control needs to be so precise that you're not going to let FindMine's AI do the picking of what goes into the asset. Then sort of in the middle ground, there's people who are comfortable with us picking, or our system picking what goes into the asset, which stories, which trends to pair back to, and things like that. That's great. And then on the full other side, because those people in the middle might, have overrides for specific collections, or they might want to approve which trends, or they might want to, they're not comfortable using full AI, non-humans wearing things. They want kind of a little bit more control there. And then on the full other end of the spectrum, there's folks who are just letting it run. They don't touch anything. They just let it do its thing. And then we're reporting back on it. And if they, see something that's weird, they adjust for it. But for the most part, it's before we've even launched, like, it's met their high bar for brand. And so then they're completely hands off. And actually, like, I would say that the first two category brands I would put in the first two categories, when we first start working together, I've often been surprised by how they like just get completely hands off after 2-3 weeks of being live, and them seeing like, oh, did I make that? Is that manual, or did the system do it? Like, they're like, cool, as long as I can't tell the difference, I got other things to do with my day.
Yeah, I know you've worked with big brands. Like I mentioned some earlier, but like the Gap and Banana Republic, and that's why like that whole group of brands, Lululemon. Are they? What was it like going into some of those brands? Because those are brands everyone knows, right? So, but I also think when I think of like Banana Republic, I think of a certain style, right? When you walk by the store, you see the posters or the mannequins. How does a brand like that adapt internally? Like, was it pretty quick? Did it take some getting used to? Because I imagine with anything that's new, I guess it depends when you come in the door, but it takes some getting used to. You have to sort of get comfortable with it. How was it for a brand like that?
Yeah, I mean, no matter who we work with, I feel like there's always more desire for control earlier on than as we kind of come through to post algorithm training and system understanding and like, change management period. And then we're like live and the ads are on the site and they start seeing the results and I'm like, oh, well, it's hard to argue with 50% higher ROAS. But like, even then you're not going to be like mad at the outcome, because we wouldn't have ever gotten out of the gate in that first sort of, tuning period if it wasn't already passing your muster. So that process actually happens surprisingly quickly. And then every brand goes through, different ebbs and flows. So like, Gap has a new CEO who's sort of famously reinventing the brands underneath his leadership. And so there's ebbs and flows of like how much resetting, reorienting that has to happen. And that's super important because like a lot of recommendation technology is sort of like pattern recognition based on what's happened. What was successful before is going to be successful again. So let's do more of it. And you get stuck in this rut. That's why we had skinny jeans for like, 20 years. It was skinny jeans, right? Finally, it kind of started to come out of that phase. But resetting the brand can be it has to be very intentional. And the brands who do it really well, like Gap, they are rewarded for it big time. But if you take a misstep, if it's not that intentional, it can really backfire. And it doesn't necessarily mean if you're reinventing your brand, you have to go full control again. It's more about the like explanation of the new direction and how we are able to articulate that to a system that is helping kind of be that connective tissue across all the touch points in the customer journey. Because even without any kind of technology whatsoever, if you're a group of human beings that are trying to reset the brand in any kind of organization with some kind of scale, the person who works on the PDP is not the person who works on the ads, is not the person who works in email. Like, you have to have something cross-coordinating all of these different groups and all of these different people. And that's what we aim to be, is this connective tissue that unites all the different departments in an organization. Because your consumer, they don't really care what part of the journey they're in. They don't notice, there shouldn't be any difference. They just want to experience their favorite brand. They don't notice if they're on TikTok experiencing it, or they're in their inbox, or they're in their text messages, or they're in their stores. Like, the experience has to be uniform for them and uniformly excellently delivered and inspiring and all the things in order for you to get that customer to be loyal.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about, we've talked about different brands, different categories. How do you think about your ICP? So for the brands listening today, like who is your ideal customer? Who should want to work with you across? You can talk about brand size or category. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, our ICP today tends to be a brand with some scale. So they're selling on, Shopify Plus. Maybe they've upgraded recently from Shopify to Shopify Plus, or they're on Salesforce or SAP or Homegrown or something like that. So they have some kind of scale, a number of products that might be, a few hundred to a million, really. But they have some kind of like catalog variety. So they're more of a lifestyle brand. They're not just selling one product. Like they might have started there, but they've aspired to be a lifestyle brand. They've added other products as they've gone. And then in terms of like geography, like I said, we serve, companies in Japan and Europe and Canada and the US. Like we're pretty worldwide. China's challenging for a couple of reasons, mostly because we're hosted on Google Cloud. But geographically speaking, there's less limitations there because a lot of what we do isn't even necessarily like text, it's visual. So you don't have all the sort of language translation and stuff like that. And then in terms of categories, we're talking about, we do really well in anything that has sort of an aesthetic or qualitative vibe to it. So fashion, home, beauty, fine jewelry, accessories, that kind of thing. We also do really well anything that has like expertise to it. So like that would be sporting goods, or we actually had a multi-brand retailer use us for like sexual wellness products because there's a lot of questions and confusion around that. Skincare, the regimen isn't always that obvious. Sometimes the ingredients of products can counteract each other. So there's like a beauty counter expert in the physical store. Any place where there's expertise that really helps you sell your product, that is something that we can help you do at a bigger scale than you're currently doing it today.
Got it. I know you mentioned 50% increase in ROAS, but can you give us an example of a success story and sort of the client, if you can name them, and like what they did and how it improved their business?
Yeah, so we have a case study with Anine Bing that's on our website, so you can see how we increase their average order value, their conversion. We tested in a couple of different ways. So typically those are going to be like the main metrics: average order value, conversion, and then repeat purchase also often goes up. So we're actually building a more loyal, healthy customer for you. And it depends a little bit on where you put FindMine in the customer journey. Another data point that's in a public case study on our website is from DXL. It's a men's big and tall multi-brand retailer. We did these kind of like trend specific or campaign specific landing pages for them, and they got an 8% conversion rate versus industry standard is what, like 2-3%. So it's like an order of magnitude higher. And the reason is that they're specific. They're specific to what a segment of the population cares about. And in this case, we did something like barn wedding, beach wedding, black tie wedding. It was like all the different types of wedding style that you could have versus just wedding season, right? That's the monolith. We broke the monolith down, and then we were able to get much more, like engaged customers with that because it was more directly speaking to their actual need and the outcome that they were looking to achieve.
I love it. With all of the deals that all the brands you've worked on, any surprises? In other words, something the client didn't expect when you rolled it out, something that popped up. They were like, wow, I didn't think that was going to happen. And positive, of course.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, certainly more positive surprises than negative. I mean, the negative surprises usually come about because of like dirty data. It's like, that's what they say with AI, garbage in, garbage out. But
True.
Humans make an equal number of mistakes too when you have bad data. So it's like, oh, I thought this was a women's jacket, and but it's actually for like little girls, and it kind of turned into something weird. So those are like the negative surprises, but and they're pretty easily corrected. But on the positive side, I think it's more around like the insights that they've gleaned. So we had a customer who like realized that because of the analytics that we share back with them, so we can pipe back all this data into your Adobe or your Google Analytics, so you can see it in your own systems. And they learned that a certain type of top was selling better when paired with a certain type of like bralette, because it's the top had like the potential for your bra strap to be showing. And so if you had like a lacy kind of cute bralette, it would look intentional. And they were actually selling more of these tops because they showed the customer how to do it in a way that was going to be helpful and on trend and all the things. And so they re-merchandise their physical store based on that. They changed where product A's sort of rack was in relation to product B's table, and they dressed the mannequin in this style because of the insight they gleaned from the system. So it's bidirectional and kind of like a feedback loop across kind of everything in the organization. And that's what we want. We want it to be the connective tissue across everything.
I love that when the online business changes something about the physical world business. We didn't even speak about that. Let's speak about that really quick about how do brands use FindMine in the physical stores other than just informing them? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the first one I would say is just use the data to understand what's trending in your geography and your DMA, for the products that you have in the physical store. The second one is we have customers who use us on physical touch screens, like visible to the consumer. So that could be in the front of house where you can shop the vibe, you can look at inspiring, content, you can, engage with it, send it to yourself, that kind of thing. In the dressing room, you can also, we don't do the hardware, but you can plug it into hardware in the dressing room that sort of lights up and tells you product information. And then we also do it in the store associates devices and in the store mode of the app. So the consumer can kind of have a self-directed journey where they're discovering more content about each product as they shop. Or as I mentioned before, in sort of the luxury clienteling use case, we're feeding it to the store associates. The store associates are then having, again, operational efficiency, doing their work. A lot of times the clienteling applications, like the store associates are defaulting to what's easiest because they're busy and they're trying to reach a lot of customers. So they'll send out, here's some new arrivals, or they'll send out, here's stuff that's on sale. And obviously new arrivals is the same for everyone, and stuff that's on sale is margin eroding. So what we can do is we can auto suggest based on that person, based on the location, based on the inventories available, blah, blah, blah. Here's sort of more prescriptive like style guides. This is the, Agari makeup trend. This is the latte makeup trend. And you just hit send after a few edits and it's much faster. So those are kind of the different store use cases.
Yeah, that's pretty cool because I can't think of any, really great experiences I've had in retail of late. It just feels like each year it's harder and harder to find good people, right? I know when I was growing up, my dad had his own business and people were professional retail salespeople. They understood fashion. And today they're just part-time workers or hourly workers that are, no offense to them, they're just making a living, but they're not experts in fashion or the product. They don't know all the inventory. They don't know the style. They don't know, they're not trained to look at you like a different person than the other person. I love the idea of
at it too. It's the turnover is really high, so they might not be there for long enough to really get into the meat of what the brand stands for and make it their own.
Yeah, I love the idea of walking up to a screen and be like, okay, I'm looking at these pants. What are some options I should wear? That'd be pretty cool. Okay, as a CEO, I'm sure you're always thinking about the future. How do you see personalized styling experiences evolving, given where you see the technology is going?
Yeah. So our current philosophy is meet the customer where they're at, right? Which is it's Instagram, it's social media, it's the places that they click through from that, which is PDP or maybe landing pages. It's, their email, post-purchase, blah, blah, blah. It's the stores through the things I mentioned, but that's rapidly evolving. So what I'm seeing coming is obviously Chat GPT and other AI mode, I guess, in Google, replacing traditional Google search. So the way that customers engage with those is a lot more outcome oriented than the traditional Google search, where I might type in, anti-acne toner, right? And then I'm going to find my anti-acne toner. How did I know I need anti-acne toner? Because I watched a Getting Ready with Me of a woman who's, perimenopausal, having a resurgence of acne as a full ass adult and trying to figure out what to do with it. And she has this toner. So now I'm Googling for that. But if you could catch me when I'm I'm 40 years old. I've finished having kids. Why am I having acne? What is going on with my hormones? How do I fix this? Right. That's the kind of thing you ask ChatGPT or AI mode. That's the kind of thing you watch on Instagram. You're not asking traditional Google search that. That's 5 or 6 steps later that you're going to ask traditional Google search for a specific product. If you can catch the customer earlier in their journey when it's more outcome oriented, you get a bigger share of wallet, you get more loyalty. There's just all this great stuff that you get. And so I see this shift from traditional Google search to a more outcome oriented AI mode style search as a really good thing for retailers if they are prepared to be indexed for it. And they are so not right now. So the thing that they need to be doing is putting all their data in order. And we support this. You don't have to have it be visibly showing up to the customer on a page to have the data be assorted in a way that your AI chat, search results are going to be able to index very quickly on brand X and beauty has everything you need. And here's the prescription, rather than, because again, AI is brilliant and stupid. It's also a little lazy. It's made in the image of its creators, right? Humans are lazy too. So if it can find, here's everything you need for perimenopausal, post kids resurgence of acne, here's the regimen, step by step, whatever, that was produced by a brand out there on the internet, it's going to be like, aha, I'm done with my homework. Here you go. And it's just going to move on with its life, because it's not going to use the extra compute to go 15, 16 different extra steps. So if brands are really savvy right now, they'll be setting up their data, their pages, their backend, their systems in order to support all those outcome-oriented searches.
Yeah, it's funny. People in this business don't eat their own dog food sometimes. And you basically, what you just described there is it's outcomes, right? Like when we think about marketing, we're like marketing toward outcomes. It's the same thing for a shopper. Like I don't want to go to 15 sites to look at, I'll use your acne cream, right? I want to know right now, what's the best one for me so I can buy it and move on with my life. Like this is not what I live for.
Yeah.
So if would that be like, just to summarize what FindMine does, because I think we went pretty wide. A brand or a retailer can use FindMine for ads, email, landing pages, category pages, PDPs, in store, in a variety of ways, in app, and to help make sure they're AI ready.
Correct.
Wow, got it all. So one of my questions was going to be like, where would you tell somebody that's just sort of starting this journey? I mean, just come talk to FindMine and help you build out that plan, because you seem to have it all together.
Yeah, I would just say like start somewhere. You don't have to bite off the whole, more than you can chew right away. It's like, because your organization is inevitably aligned to social media, early customer funnel, late customer funnel. Maybe it's even like as specific as PDP, add to cart, cart. Like it gets really granular the bigger the organization gets, right? So depending on what your remit is, there is a way that you can turn a shopping journey that's in your slice of the journey from an individual product spearfishing expedition into an outcome-oriented, more money for you, better for the customer experience. And that's where we'll help. We'll start there. You don't have to do it all from the, superimposed top down.
All right. That's great. So let's wrap with the lightning round. Ready for this?
Sure.
3 quick questions,
Okay.
quick as you can answer. Okay. What's the one thing you believe about styling or merchandising that most people in retail don't?
This will sound like a broken record, but like the outcome matters. So why do you do the window display? It's because the outcome matters. Think about that in every other part of the journey.
Okay. So just to tack onto that, what's the one mistake brands are still making in that area?
I mean, this is kind of a boring lightning round, but they're still trying to like optimize for the individual product. It's all about SEO and get the customer to the one product. No, it's not about the one product. It's about the outcome.
Lightning round questions are pre-written, and you answered them all before we got here.
Okay.
I'll ask the last one just because it's there. What's the one piece of tech or trend you're personally most excited about in retail AI? And you can't say AI.
Ooh. Well, now you're going to stump me. I actually, this is such a departure from everything we've been talking about, but I honestly think like fraud prevention and fraud prevention, like these companies that are doing like predictive detection about who's a real customer and who's not. And like, it's such a big problem, and it's such an unsexy, like not marketing-y front of house type of thing to talk about. But I think it's the most interesting and like promising area. It is probably AI application, but it's that gets me excited for some reason. I don't know. It's so different from what I do.
No, it's an interesting topic, not as sexy as this, but certainly something that we should talk about on the show. And I'd love to talk about it with somebody someday. All right. Well, that's a wrap. So thank you for being with us. For anyone who wants to learn more, visit findmine.com or check out their page on trustblurbs.com under personalized styling recommendations. Thanks to everyone for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, follow us at the MarTech Matrix wherever you get your podcasts, and we will see you next time.
That's it for today's episode of the MarTech Matrix, a Blurbs production. To see what's coming up next, visit themartechmatrix.com. And if you're looking for your next MarTech solution, start your search at trustblurbs.com, where marketers discover vendors faster.